In this video, we'll briefly discuss how audio works in Unity, and then add audio to our solar system. The basic concept of audio in Unity is fairly simple. You have an audio listener component, which, like a microphone or your ears, picks up audio from a certain location in the environment. The audio listener component is often attached to the camera. You only have one audio listener component turned on at a time within your Unity scene. You also have audio source components attached to game objects within the scene. The audio listener picks up the sound emitted from all the audio sources to create the overall sound mix the player hears. Unity supports 3D positional sound. That is, the audio listener will position the audio from the audio sources based on their relative position in 3D space. Our objectives for this video will be to add sound to the sun and add sound to the earth. Okay, the first thing that we'll do is we will look at our main camera and notice that it has an audio listener component attached. It's kind of small, it doesn't have any properties, so it's just this single line here, and you can see it's turned on. If you recall from our last video on cameras, we created the Minimap camera, and that also has an audio listener component, but we turned that off, because once again, you can only have one audio listener component turned on at a time within a scene. And that, of course, is on our main camera. So now that we have our audio listener enabled, we also need audio sources to be able to hear things. So let's go ahead and put an audio source on the sun. So within our assets, we included a few sounds. So let me open my sound folder here. And you can see one of those sounds is called burning. Let me select that. Over in the inspector, you can see the various import settings for that audio clip. And at the very bottom of the inspector, there's actually a location for previews, which may be closed like mine is. If you move your mouse down, you could then grab this and pull it up to show the preview. And this will preview all different types of assets, not just audio clips. But here we have our sound wave for the burning. And from here, you can actually click play to preview it. So that sounds like a fire, which would be a great sound effect for our sun. So there's many ways to do things in Unity. Once again, I want to create an audio source on the sun, and one shortcut is I can just grab my audio clip and drop it right on the sun game object, and that will do a couple different things. So if I go to the sun, it actually attached a audio source. So if I scroll down here, you can see I now have an audio source component on the sun game object, and it set the audio clip to that burning audio clip game asset. Now, the audio source component has numerous properties that you can set. One of those is loop. So loop basically means when the audio clip gets to the end, it will loop back and start fresh. This is great for continuous music, continuous ambient sound, and that sort of thing, which is essentially what this burning sound effect is. We want this to play continuously as long as the sun exists in our scene. So I'll go ahead and click loop. Then let's go down to another important setting, that's volume. Right now it's set to 1. 1 basically means full volume. I'm just going to dial this down to a smaller volume. I'm going to actually set it to around 0.3, or I can just go here and type 0.3 if I want to be precise. And this means about 30% volume. The next setting that I want to look at is the spatial blend. Notice that the spatial blend on this audio source is set to 2D. This means that the sound will play at the same volume no matter how close or how far away it is from the camera. This is a great setting for background music or ambient sounds that you always want to play at a set volume that you set up here. So it doesn't matter how close or how far away the audio source is from the audio listener, it will always play consistent if you set the spatial blend to 2D, which is what we want in this case. Okay, we have that audio source set up. If I want to test this quickly, I can just hit play. And I can hear that burning sound playing continuously at a set 30% volume level during play. Let me go ahead and hit stop. Now let's set an audio source on the Earth. Let me go to that game object, and I'm going to do this in the manual fashion just so you can see how it's done. So over in the inspector, I can click on Add Component, and then you can see one of the categories is audio. So let me select that, and then I'm going to pick Audio Source. And that will add the audio source component. And notice the audio clip is not set. So this will take any audio clip. So a quick way to do this is to hit the little target icon, and we can then select audio clips here. And I'm going to pick the drone hum audio clip and close that. And once again, just like the sun audio source, I want this one to loop. I want it to play, continuously across the scene. Now, since the Earth will constantly be changing distance from the camera as it rotates around the sun, I want this audio source to be 3D positional. That is, I want the sound to get louder as the Earth moves closer to the camera and quieter as it moves away. Further, I want the sound to come from where the Earth is located, once again, 3D positional sound. Therefore, I'll change the spatial blend on the audio source from 2D to 3D. So I'll go all the way from 2D to 3D. You can actually place it somewhere in the middle where it would be kind of a blend between 2D sound and 3D sound. But I'll position it all the way to 3D. Now, once I do that, these 3D sound settings become important. So let me click on the little arrow to cascade this open and scroll down. And some of the most important settings are the minimum distance and the maximum distance. You can see here in the little tooltip, it says within the minimum distance, the volume stays at the loudest possible. So this would be 100% volume because that's what I set up here at the minimum distance. And then the maximum distance is the distance a sound stops attenuating at, so basically it'd be quiet past that distance. So I'm going to change this from 500 meters down to 5 meters. So once, this audio source is more than 5 meters away from the camera, we won't be able to hear it at all. Now down below, you can see a visual graph of sort of the roll-off here. So you can see at 0 to 1 meters, it's going to be maximum volume. And then from 1 to 5, it's going to go down here. Now this curve here, you can change from a logarithmic curve, which is set here, to, for example, a linear curve. And you can actually grab these little control points and move them around. So if you didn't want to go down to 0, you could move it up a little bit. You can actually right click and add a new key, and then do whatever you want here to change the sort of fall off curve. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to logarithmic, and then we'll just have a nice sort of fall off here. Now with this open, let me go ahead and hit play. And one nice thing is it actually shows the distance of the listener here. So as the Earth plays, you can see it goes farther than that minimum distance. I actually need to drag this back down to 0 so it completely falls off here. So you can see when it gets over that distance, we can't hear the Earth at all. And then as it comes back, we can hear that humming sound again. Now I've actually made changes while I'm playing. So just as we did before I stop playing, let me scroll back up here to the top of the audio source and click the little 3 dots to bring up the menu, and then copy the component. And then if I stop, the settings will go back to the way they were before I started playing. So let me click the menu now, and then paste component values. So that'll overwrite the values, and you can see my curve then changes to the settings that I set while it was playing. Okay, let's go ahead and save our scene. And now we've got a little audio in our solar system.